It is a rainy day out on the farm today, and our sheep have been eyeing this patch of green grass for quite some time. As anybody knows from our previous videos, we don't mow the lawn. We,
These are piggies.
the pigs mow the lawn, or the sheep mow the lawn, don't they, guys?
There are mini lawnmowers.
Mini lawnmowers. They're not so mini.
Good for the environment.
They are very good for the environment, and they fertilize the lawn at the same time, don't they? So Chris and I'll take you out in this rain here, have worked on a little pen here to fence the backyard.
So the one thing we'll say before we do a little tour, we have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the sheep, the temporary electric netting. And what we're going to show you is a great example of where
When we love it.
we love it. This is the best application we can think of for this stuff. And so even if you're raising sheep or pigs or something smaller like that, the electric netting still is fantastic for this kind of application.
Yeah, so let's go take them to see. This, as you can see, is our backyard. There's the sheep pen. No grass to be seen.
This is the start of our electric fence. Right at that little
Yeah.
pole.
Hang on, we're coming. So we have, behind the tractor here, right at that pole, that is the start of our electric fence netting. We have a little wire there that we do connect to for fencing this for the pigs with their single strand of electric. So we just attach the sheep fencing on there. And it goes all the way around. But here's the newly completed blueberry patch in the backyard. But anyways, as you can see here, the sheep have got a lot of grass here, and it's quite funny. As soon as we rolled out the electric netting, they knew what was coming. They were just bawing at the fence. There is a little bit of stuff in here, but to be honest, there's so much grass, they're not going to be concerned with some of the items that they've got to work around. Here they come. They're all like, are we really allowed? They made it like 6 feet.
It's kind of funny. It's like, they just all run around the door.
Still looks like nobody's gonna have babies today.
And we hope soon there will be babies.
We like to make sure the grass is just about at belly height before we let anything on it. I still have some more to shear. You can see Lila's fleece there is falling off. Just time. Time gets away from us. So is Brownie's fleece, you can see. I still have 4 more to go. He's looking huge. Hope that's not triplets. We will let these girls eat and come back and check on them in a little bit.
Well, that's kind of the extent of the excitement. They're out and pretty happy. I guess a couple things. One thing that we will say to anybody who doesn't know, when you have ruminants, so animals that have the 4-chambered stomach, which sheep, goats, and cows are all in that category. There are others. When you have ruminants, it's not a good idea to take them from sort of a dry lot or stall where they haven't had access to greens and give them lush grass like that. Now, in our experience with the Icelandics, we find, because we for the most part keep them outside, I mean, they've had access to the other pasture that they just came out of kind of all spring, and they have chewed it down to next to nothing, but that's given them access to grass. So this is not, essentially they've had the gradual transition. If you were taking them directly from, let's say, in the barn to out on pasture, you might want to limit the amount of time they have out there. And we still may slightly do this, less for their benefit and more for the pasture benefit, because they will eventually get to the point that they've filled themselves up and they'll want to lay down and go to sleep somewhere. So at that point we may take them off. So this is not necessarily free-for-all. But
well, this is breakfast. Then they can come back out again later and have lunch or dinner.
And we basically want them to mow this down to a pretty pretty short level, and then hopefully by then they'll be on to the next part of the pasture rotation. Now, I guess the point of this whole video was a little bit of our experience on sort of the pros and cons, or the love-hate relationship with the electronetting. For the application you see behind us, and we do this pretty much every spring, we find that this stuff is amazing. When you have an area like this part of our yard that you want them to graze down, but you don't want a permanent fence for whatever the reason, it's great. It's mobile. It's relatively easy to transport. It's pretty light, but it is a little bit tricky to work with, and that would be sort of the one negative towards it. Where we find if we get into a bigger area, it really depends on the kind of pasture you have. If you have a nice, basically cleared, pretty flat,
not have to work
square,
around trees, and
yeah, a pasture that you don't have to work around a lot of obstacles, this stuff is great, of course, because you don't have anything to get tangled in. If you have a pasture that's an odd shape, you've got a lot of trees or brush to work around, that kind of stuff, it's not the funnest thing to work with. So I guess keep that in mind.
It's just another step. It adds another step that is more time.
Yes.
I mean, for us to set this up this morning, yeah, it took 20-25 minutes maybe.
From start to finish. That's from deciding to go and do it this morning to getting the fence, to untangling what was tangled, to getting it up, to getting electrified and having the sheep
That's
out.
another thing that's lovely about this stuff, is when it gets tangled up.
Yeah.
That's a part of the hate relationship.
A little bit. I would, from our experience, it's not the best for perimeter fences or fences where you're not able to monitor. We find with the Icelandics, they do test it. They usually leave it. These girls probably won't today. They're more than content. But if you get to the point that they're
something's greener on the other side
of the fence, they will test it. And if they're not where you can kind of keep an eye on them, we find that you end up with animals on the wrong side of the fence or out.
And we've had, because our sheep have horns, we have had them get tangled in it by their horns.
It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, so it's just another thing to think about. But I guess all in all, for us, it's a great thing to have some of this fencing, because there are applications just like this where it's nice to have it. However, we are a bigger proponent of permanent fences from a time perspective. It takes more time on the front end to get them set up, as you can see from our numerous fencing videos, and the fact that we are still a long way from actually having that complete. And it does take a little bit more planning. If you're talking any area, this is not necessarily the best option. That's just our thoughts. Still a great product, but we would caution anybody who's starting out, maybe don't put all your eggs in one basket and just bank on the electric netting. We just probably would caution investing too much money in too much of it, for our application at least. They're looking quite content out there, and that will last them for a little while, especially if we do bring them off of it periodically. So that's one little minor job, and a few bales of hay saved. And actually, last point on this, this is also helping us in our rotation, because this area won't be permanently used for sheep like some of our other, I say permanently, but permanently part of the rotation. They may only get this now, and they may not get it again this year, depending on how we do with fences and grass growth and all of that fun stuff. So we're just before lambing season, and when they lamb, that basically triggers hormones to all the dormant eggs of the parasites, the internal parasites that they have, sort of jump into action. And we can't really do much about that right now, which is why we're kind of keeping them to this area. It's not a sacrifice area, but it's just, it'll be a long time before they come back here. So this is just helping with that, because they're not contaminating a nice fresh pasture like up on the hill, where we will be moving them shortly after lambing.
And worming.
And the yearly cycles of that. All of that, of course, is a measures to reduce the dependency on worming. For us, it's not something that we feel is feasible to completely eliminate, but definitely something to consider for a variety of reasons. That's a whole other topic on its own, reducing the dependency on it. So on that note, we're going to go and do some other stuff today, and see what we can get done on this kind of rainy day, because it's still a little cool to be working out in the rain.